Hey guys, Alberto Big Boost here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're welding the fixturing table. I pretty much have everything done here, but I am working on the legs. Even the legs on these things I am TIG welding, which look really good. I almost don't want to paint. These are the bases that go onto the table. I fully TIG welded this all the way around. Then I also TIG welded the bottom part that I can either use this as feet or I can put casters on these. I'm just gonna use this as is right now, and maybe later I'm gonna get the casters for it. Then I have some textured gray paint that I'm gonna be trying to paint this thing with, and we're gonna give it like a steel color, but it won't rust. This took me like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to do. I got everything welded from the bottom, but now I have to weld all of these joints here that are gonna be welded like this, but they look like this. I have just a couple of them to do. Now we're gonna TIG weld this table leg together. And done. Let's see if I can zoom in so you can see the details. What do you guys think? Pretty good for a regular mild steel weld, isn't it? I got the legs painted graphite gray. They're all bolted down. But now we have one big issue. This table weighs, I don't even know how much this weighs. This weighs a ton. And I have to see if I can somehow tilt it over by myself. So I went ahead and attached a chain in the middle. I'm gonna use the engine hoist to try to see if we can lift this thing and put it on its feet. I didn't put it all the way against the wall yet because I still have to weld these little side pieces and like stitch everything up, as well as have to do the top and all four sides. At least the whole bottom part is already fully welded. On my way to the shop today, I stopped over at Titan Motorsports and I picked up a brand new OEM Toyota crank angle sensor for my 2JZ. I've been having some slight issues with the triggers, and I ended up having to set the trigger arming voltage really low on my crank angle sensor on the 2J, and that means that the sensor is not operating at the voltage it's supposed to be operating at. That means that the waveform that the sensor is generating is too small, so it's not being able to, so the computer is not able to recognize the signal. So we need a higher voltage signal, which is about 3 volts, and then that way the computer can interpret that as a tooth count. Other than the issues that I'm having right now, which is super low voltage and my car won't go past 6,000 RPM. So we're gonna replace the crank angle sensor today and see if we can fix the problem that way. But before I can do that, I have to finish my welding table. I also have this turbo from a customer that I'm going to weld a V-band flange on the turbo outlet to eliminate the problematic 4-bolt setup that normally tends to come loose. We'll do a V-band, that way it's able to install the downpipe a lot easier. Meanwhile, I'm gonna put the fan to cool off the E36. That way it's a lot colder by the time I have to work with it. I have the turbo set up here on the fabrication table. Cool thing about this, You literally ground the table, then anything you place on the table is already grounded as long as it's contacting the table. Now, for this turbo, we have the normal 2.5 inch 4-bolt outlet flange. The problem with this, we want to use a 3-inch downpipe, which obviously you can't go from 2.5 to 3 inch here because the tube is going to be in the way of the bolts. So one way to fix this is to weld a B-band outlet straight to the turbos to convert it to 3 inch right off the bat. Also, it will make servicing this turbo and removing the downpipe a lot easier since it's just one bolt on the wing nut here on the B-band clamp rather than taking 4 bolts out. These are 4 bolts that are prone to wiggling loose and we don't want that. So we're gonna add simplicity and ease of access. When welding stainless steel to mild steel, you want to use 309 filler wire. This is a filler rod that you want to use to weld stainless steel to mild steel. Then if it were stainless steel to stainless steel, you will use 308 like this one over here. We need a clean surface to weld, so we're gonna lightly grind the top off. That way we have a nice clean surface for a clean weld. Now we can weld to this nice and clean surface. I try getting as clean of a weld as possible. I ended up welding the inside. Good thing about that, it also have more shielding gas concentrated in there. And now we have a Garrett GT3071R, the little old school guy. Instead of 2.5 inch outlet, now we have a 3 inch B-band outlet, ready for big power. Here we have the crank sensor that came out of my car. So this is a auto parts store replacement one, but I guess the magnet is not as accurate as high RPM as the factory Toyota one, where you can distinguish, of course, not only it will say Toyota on the magnet, but it says Japan, here, and then so on the other side. The construction looks very similar. You can tell the OEM plastic has a different shade to it. And then I also noticed that the ground contact is soldered and crimped, and this one is just crimped. I don't know, maybe these ones are a defect, they have too much resistance or something, but there's a reason that the OEM one is better. Alright, I did a thing. So these are the new voltage values. The computer ended up having water in the plug, which I'll show you guys in a bit. But check this out now. No more trigger errors. Now we're talking. I unmounted my ECU from the dash panel and I realized that I have water in one of the plugs. I was corroding one of the terminals. I ended up cleaning it. I'm gonna end up putting the computer with the terminals facing the bottom side so that it won't do that again. Meanwhile, on the front of the car, I ended up removing the front cover because I was having a pretty bad oil leak that kept getting worse and worse, and that was with the VVTi gear. The big O-ring on the outside of this gear, or the outside part or the inside part, you know what I mean, was pretty crispy. So I was spitting oil all over the place. I kept having to wipe this down. Then now that I got the car to rev all the way to 7,000 or 8,000 RPM, the oil got worse. Here's another gear that I have that I ended up taking apart, and that O-ring goes in this little groove right here and seals with the front plate. Now, the O-ring that came out of this gear is this one right here. You can see it's still a little flexible. The O-ring that came out of my car, literally rock solid. So you get it. Rubber loses flexibility, oil leak, flexible rubber that seals, no leak. Before we wrap everything up around here, everything's back together on the engine bay side, and now inside the car, I am mounting the ECU backwards or upside down. That way, instead of the plugs being on the top and getting water on, or the wire dripping from the wire all the way into the harness somehow, Now water can't, or it's gonna have a harder time going upwards. So that way we don't have any more water depositing into the plugs. So this is how I'm leaving the ECU for now. I still, like I said in earlier videos, I still gotta work on the harness with this part to connect all the inside of the car components and turbo RPM sensor as well. After everything today being done, I feel pretty accomplished of everything that happened today. So I got the first thing welded on the fabrication table. I got the fabrication table put together. I managed to fix the RPM stuff on the car, so this thing has been driving me crazy for the past couple of days trying to figure out what was the issue. I went to 4 different crank sensors. I inspected the trigger wheel because I said, well, maybe it's damaged. People say, well, if it's missing a tooth or something, it could cause any issue. So I checked everything, double checked everything. I upgraded my alternator to a 200 amp alternator because I thought it was probably being low in power. Everything's done, and it was just corrosion in the wiring. So guys, check your wiring before going through all the headache of changing sensors and all this other stuff. Wiring has to be on top notch for everything to work correctly. Well, that being said, I'm gonna head out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Please smash that like button and subscribe for more awesome content. Alberto Big Boost here. Bye guys.